HOA tried to remove my welcome sign, unaware it was designed by a famous artist. You think you can just waltz in here and do whatever the hell you want? Linda Kavanagh, HOA president and self-proclaimed guardian of Willow Crest standards, stood on my porch, red-faced, voice sharp enough to slice glass. A printed violation notice flapped in her manicured hand like a battle flag. I folded my arms, meeting her glare with an unbothered smirk. It's a welcome sign, Linda. Not a goddamn billboard. That thing. She jabbed a finger at the elegant wooden plaque hanging beside my door. Violates community guidelines. I snorted. Show me where it says that. Linda's eyes narrowed. She hated being challenged. It disrupts uniformity. This isn't some backwater town where people slap tacky yard decorations wherever they please. It's a welcome sign. It says welcome. That's it. A second HOA board member, Greg Tall, reeking of self-importance, crossed his arms beside her. You're new here. Maybe you don't understand how things work. Oh, I understand just fine. I stepped forward, voice calm but firm. I read the handbook front to back. And guess what? There's nothing about welcome signs. You're making this up as you go. Linda scoffed. This is an exclusive community. We maintain a certain look. I raised an eyebrow. A look that allows other homes to have decorative wreaths and lawn gnomes? Or does uniformity only apply when you don't like someone? Linda's nostrils flared. You are not going to win this. Oh, I already did, I said. The moment you showed up to fight over a sign, you lost. Greg let out a sharp laugh. Fine. If you want to play hardball, we'll escalate. Consider this your final warning. Take it down, or face consequences. I crossed my arms. Do your worst. Linda sneered, turned on her heel, and stormed off. Greg trailed behind, muttering, arrogant prick. I closed my door, exhaled, and glanced at the sign. They had no idea who they were dealing with. Willow Crest was the kind of neighborhood where everything looked curated, because it was. Trimmed hedges, beige houses with matching shutters, and an HOA that ruled with an iron fist. I moved in 6 months ago, expecting peace and quiet. Instead, I got a power-hungry board that policed grass length and mailbox styles like it was a goddamn dictatorship. I wasn't some rebel looking to stir trouble. But the moment I put up my welcome sign, a tasteful, handcrafted wooden piece, I felt the shift. Neighbors hesitated before waving. The HOA started inspecting my property. It wasn't about the sign. It was about control. And I wasn't about to roll over. The first time Linda made her move, it wasn't through a notice. It was in person. I was in my driveway, washing my car, when her white BMW pulled up. She stepped out, sunglasses perched on her nose, a polite but predatory smile in place. Morning, she chirped. I already knew where this was going. Morning. She glanced at my house. You're settling in well. I see you've made personal touches. I wiped my hands on a rag. Yeah, small things. She tapped a manicured nail on the roof of her car. About that sign. What about it? She tilted her head. It's not exactly in line with the neighborhood aesthetic. I raised an eyebrow. And she exhaled sharply. Look, I'll be blunt. The HOA likes consistency. If you just take it down, we won't have a problem. I smiled. Here's the thing, Linda. We already have a problem. Linda wasn't bluffing. 2 days after our porch showdown, I found a bright orange notice taped to my front door. I yanked it off and laughed. These assholes really think I'm just gonna bend over, huh? I barely had time to process before my neighbor, Mrs. Patel, hurried over. She was in her 60s, a kind woman with sharp eyes. Are you okay? She asked in a hushed tone. I waved the paper. Linda's playing games. She sighed. She always does. She picks someone new every few months, makes an example out of them, and nobody fights back? She shook her head. People try, but she's relentless. And the HOA has money for legal battles. Nobody wants the headache. I clenched my jaw. Well, I'm not nobody. That night, I fired off an email to the HOA demanding to see the exact rule I'd broken. No response. I sent another. And another. Silence. 2 days later, another notice. The fine had doubled. They weren't going to play fair. Fine. Neither was I. The next morning, I noticed Greg, the HOA enforcer, taking photos of my house. I stepped onto the porch, coffee in hand. "That's cute. Do you want an autograph too?" He didn't even look embarrassed. "Just documenting violations." I took a slow sip of coffee. "Violations? Plural?" He smirked. "The driveway's got an oil stain. Mailbox isn't regulation. Your lawn's a little overgrown." I stared him down. "You're fucking kidding me." "Nope." He tapped his phone screen. "Linda's just getting started." That night, a third violation landed in my inbox. Mailboxes must be HOA approved. Mine, identical to half the neighborhood, was somehow not up to code. They weren't just coming for my sign anymore. They were trying to bury me under bullshit infractions. I kept documenting everything. Screenshots, photos, timestamp notes. And I wasn't the only one noticing. Mrs. Patel whispered, "She never cared about your mailbox before." Even Mr. Evans muttered, "This is personal." Damn right it was. I needed to push back. I needed something big. I stayed up that night, digging. HOA meeting minutes, complaint records, community discussions, and the pattern smacked me in the face. Linda had a habit of targeting new residents. Specifically, anyone who didn't fit her picture of Willow Crest. Single parents, unmarried professionals, people who didn't attend the HOA's ridiculous neighborhood brunches. And oh, would you look at that? All of her friends had minor violations that mysteriously never got cited. Mrs. Patel had already been fined 3 times last year for a bird feeder. Meanwhile, the guy 2 houses down had a rusted-out car in his driveway and never got so much as a warning. I copied every piece of documentation into a growing file. This wasn't about my sign. This was discrimination wrapped in HOA bullshit. But I wasn't ready to move yet. I needed something undeniable. Then I had an idea. I emailed an old friend, someone who knew exactly how to make noise. And then I waited. Linda thought she was in control. She had no idea what was coming. Linda thought she was winning. She had no idea what was coming. The next escalation came hard and fast. This time, a formal complaint. Subject: immediate compliance required. Failure to remove the non-compliant decoration, welcome sign, within 48 hours will result in legal action. Additional violations. The mailbox does not meet HOA standards. Driveway stains in violation of neighborhood upkeep regulations. Lawn edging not maintained to required specifications. Total fines, $1,500. I stared at the email, took a deep breath, and laughed. Linda was panicking. She knew I wasn't budging, so she was throwing everything at me. Fine. I clicked reply and typed. I hit send. Not 5 minutes later, my phone rang. Linda. I let it go to voicemail. A second call. Ignored. A third. I picked up. "Linda," I said, sipping my coffee. "To what do I owe the pleasure?" She was seething. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" I stretched, glancing out the window. "Oh, just a little light reading. HOA regulations. Legal statutes. You should try it sometime." Her voice dropped. "You don't want to do this." "I do." A long silence. Then, "You have 48 hours. Take the sign down. Final warning." I grinned. "And you have 48 hours before a local reporter knocks on your door asking why you selectively enforce policies against new residents." Click. Let the games begin. Word spread like wildfire. The HOA was coming for me, and I wasn't backing down. Neighbors started taking sides. Mrs. Patel, bless her, was fully in my corner. "She's a snake," she whispered. "I'll testify if this goes legal." Mr. Evans, usually quiet, grunted his support. About time someone pushed back. Even the mailman, Jeff, gave me a knowing nod. "You're making things interesting around here." But not everyone was on board. The HOA's loyalists, the pearl-clutching crowd, started snubbing me. Carol from across the street, a textbook gossip, loudly told her friend, "If you don't like the rules, move." Greg, he doubled down, snapping more photos of my house, like some suburban secret agent. And then there was Linda. She ramped up the pressure. Another letter. Another fine. Then, she tried to publicly humiliate me. The next HOA meeting was held in the community center, a beige, soulless room with folding chairs and a coffee urn that smelled like a burnt disappointment. I wasn't planning to go until I saw the agenda. New residents. Me. Linda wanted a public spectacle. I gave her one. I walked in late. Purposely. Let every pair of judgmental eyes turn to me. Linda, standing at the front, paused mid-sentence, her expression tight. "Ah," she said smoothly. "Glad you could join us." I gave a mocking little wave. She turned back to the crowd. "Now, as I was saying, our community has standards. And when people refuse to comply, it affects all of us." A few loyalists nodded. Others shifted uncomfortably. I leaned back in my chair. "Linda, let's cut the bullshit. You're harassing me over a sign." She smiled, cold and thin. "No, I'm ensuring compliance." I held up my phone. "Really?" "Because I have photo evidence of at least 5 other houses with non-compliant decorations. Yet somehow, I'm the only one getting fined." The room went dead silent. Linda's expression twitched. I pressed on. "I also have the HOA handbook right here. Would you like to point out the exact rule my sign breaks?" She didn't speak. I stood. Louder this time. "Go on, Linda. Show everyone the rule." A few people murmured. She couldn't. Because there wasn't one. That's when I knew. I had her. The war wasn't over. But I just won this battle. Linda was cornered. The meeting was dead silent. Every pair of eyes flicked between me and her, waiting. The walls of her perfect little kingdom were starting to crack, and she knew it. But a cornered animal? It lashes out. And Linda. She was about to bite. Linda squared her shoulders, plastering on the same plastic smile she always used to gaslight her way through HOA nonsense. "Look," she said, her voice dripping with fake patience. "I understand you're upset, but these rules exist for a reason." I tapped my phone screen. "Right. And yet, the rule you're enforcing doesn't exist." A few whispers rippled through the room. Linda's grip on her clipboard tightened. "We have discretion in matters of community harmony." Community harmony? I repeated, letting the words drip with disbelief. "Linda, you've been running this HOA like a damn dictatorship. You enforce rules when it suits you." "That is not true," she snapped. I smirked. "Oh, then explain why your friend Carol has had a giant holiday wreath hanging since March, but I get fined for a sign that says welcome." Carol visibly flinched. Linda's mouth pressed into a thin line. I kept going. "Or how about the guy with the rusted-out truck? The mailbox that's been duct-taped together for a year? You didn't seem too bothered by those." Mr. Evans muttered. "He's got a point." Linda's smile cracked. "We handle issues case by case." "Right," I said. "So, just coincidentally every person you go after is a new resident? Or someone who doesn't kiss your ass at HOA brunches?" Louder murmurs. Some nods. Linda's eye twitched. I leaned forward, voice dropping just enough to make her squirm. "I don't think this is about rules at all, Linda. I think it's about control. And you hate that I won't bend." She opened her mouth, then snapped it shut. She wasn't used to losing. She had one move left. She just didn't know I'd already set the trap. Linda straightened, eyes flicking around the room. Her nails tapped against the clipboard in fake confidence. "You know what?" she said, voice calculated. "Fine. Maybe you disagree. But I checked our legal standing this morning. The HOA has the right to enforce aesthetic guidelines. And if you refuse to comply..." She turned to the room with a slow, dramatic shrug. "The only option is legal action." The air went thick. I sighed. "Linda, Linda, Linda." I pulled out my phone, tapped a few buttons, and airdropped a file to everyone in the room. Within seconds, phones buzzed. Confused muttering. Then, "What the hell?" someone whispered. Greg's eyes bulged at his screen. "Is this real?" Linda frowned. "What are you?" I turned my phone around and held it up for everyone to see. An official email from the artist who designed my sign. A very famous artist. An artist whose work has been displayed in galleries worldwide. And right there, in bold text, "This is an exclusive, commissioned piece, one of only 3 in existence. The design holds artistic and historical significance." I locked eyes with Linda. "You tried to erase a fucking masterpiece because it didn't match your beige-ass fantasy land." Gasps. Shocked silence. A few people scrolled further. Someone whispered, "Oh my God, his work sells for..." Greg let out a low whistle. "Linda, You just tried to get rid of something worth more than your damn house. Linda went pale. I stepped forward, voice calm but razor sharp. And now, let me introduce you to a fun little legal term. Destruction of artistic property. I let that sink in. See this sign? It's protected. If you'd force me to remove it, you'd be looking at serious legal consequences. Not just a civil lawsuit, criminal liability. Silence. Someone choked on their coffee. Linda's face collapsed. She had lost. Completely. Utterly. And in the stunned quiet, Mrs. Patel started laughing. Once the first laugh broke through the tension, the rest of the room shifted. Linda's loyalists squirmed. The people on the fence suddenly realized they'd been played. Greg ran a hand down his face. Holy shit, he muttered. This is bad. I grinned. Oh, buddy. This is just the beginning. Linda snapped. This meeting is over. She grabbed her clipboard, turned on her heel, and stormed toward the exit. And I let her go. Because of the real damage? It was already done. She had built her entire reputation on her power. And now, everyone knew she had none. People started talking. Mrs. Patel, still smirking, whispered to Mr. Evans, "Think she resigns?" Mr. Evans snorted. "She won't have a choice." Greg, usually Linda's right-hand attack dog, suddenly looked very, very tired. He turned to me. "What happens now?" I shrugged. "Depends. Are you planning to keep kissing her ass? Or do you want to help clean up this mess?" Greg's jaw ticked. His eyes flicked to his phone screen. The same email proving Linda had just tanked herself. He let out a slow breath. "Did you get a lawyer?" I grinned. "Oh, I have several." Linda was done. She just didn't know it yet. The moment the HOA meeting ended, she vanished. No smug farewell, no final threat, just a ghost of the dictator she once was, slipping through the exit with her clipboard, clutched like a life raft. It was over. But the cleanup? That was going to be fun. By the time I got home, my inbox was blowing up. Neighbors whispering. Apologies from people who had sided with Linda, but suddenly always had doubts. Greg, of all people, sent a text. "I think we need to talk." Damn right we did. But first, Linda. She tried to lay low. For 2 days, not a single email. No fake reminders about HOA regulations. No petty violations. Silence. Then came the email bomb. "Best regards?" Oh no, Linda. You don't get to slither away with best regards. Not after everything. I replied with 2 words. "Bye, Linda." I imagined her reading it. Fists clenched, blood pressure skyrocketing. By the end of the week, she was officially out. The HOA scrambled to elect a new board. And surprise, surprise, Greg threw his name in. Greg and I met at the local coffee shop. He walked in looking like a man who had just realized he'd been licking Linda's boots for years. He sat down across from me. Didn't even touch his coffee before saying, "I fucked up." I raised an eyebrow. "Yeah, you did." He exhaled sharply, running a hand over his face. I didn't see it before. The way she twisted shit. The way she... He shook his head. I thought I was keeping the community together. But really, I was just enforcing her bullshit. I took a sip of my coffee. Let him sweat. Then I leaned back. "So, what now?" Greg straightened. "The board voted me in as interim president." I blinked. "Huh. And I want to fix this." Now that was interesting. Greg wasn't innocent, but at least he wasn't Linda. And unlike her, he wanted to clean up the mess. "What's your first move?" I asked. He took a breath. "We're scrapping the selective enforcement bullshit, rolling back fines from the last 2 years, and we're putting in an appeal process." I nodded slowly. He met my gaze. "But I need to ask you something." I smirked. "Oh, this should be good." Greg tapped his fingers against the table. "I want you on the new HOA board." I burst out laughing. Greg didn't laugh. "Wait, you're serious?" I asked, still grinning. He nodded. "You exposed everything. You already know the handbook better than half the board. And you won't let anyone pull the same shit Linda did." I sat back, thinking. Did I want to be part of this mess? Did I want to deal with HOA drama daily? No. But did I want to make sure no one else got steamrolled like I did? Yes. I sighed. Fine. But I swear to God, Greg, if you turn into Linda 2.0, I'll make sure you regret it. Greg grinned. Deal. The fallout from Linda's downfall rippled through the community. People started talking. The HOA functioned like it was supposed to for the first time in years. No more random-ass fines. No more neighborhood snitch patrols. Mrs. Patel put her bird feeder back up. Mr. Evans painted his damn mailbox purple, just to test the waters. And my sign, still hanging, still welcoming. The best part, the artist who designed it found out what happened. He reposted the whole saga on social media, calling out HOA abuse and thanking me for preserving art against oppressive suburban bureaucracy. That post went viral. News outlets picked up the story. HOA horror stories poured in from across the country. People rallied, because this wasn't just about me. It was about every HOA asshole who thought they could rule over people's lives like little suburban emperors. A few weeks later, I got a letter from Linda. Handwritten. I almost didn't open it, but curiosity got the best of me. I hope you're happy. You destroyed everything I built. I smiled. Yes, Linda. Yes, I am. I framed that letter, hung it right under my sign, because nothing says welcome like a trophy.